So I found plumber and an electrician, but neither of them had a trencher. So my husband bought the trencher and trenched all the plumbing, all the electrical lines down to the house. And then the electrician put in the little electrical box.
Nicole Sallak Anderson is an author and former CTO for a small Silicon Valley startup, but her family lost everything in a wildfire in California, and they decided to rebuild using tiny homes. They actually have 3 tiny houses on their lot because they wanted to make sure they had room for when their sons come to visit. And in this conversation, we'll talk about what it was like navigating putting tiny houses on land after a fire came through, issues with insurance, which tiny homes Nicole and her family chose and why, and what some of the challenges of tiny house living are for Nicole and her family. I hope you stick around. Are you looking for a fully customizable tiny home that's stylish, comfortable, and extremely well built? Look no further than the Via Tiny Homes by Atomic Homes. With over 2 decades of experience constructing sets for live events for top brands like the Super Bowl and WWE, Atomic is bringing their technical expertise to the tiny home market. The homes themselves are designed by Live Connected, a team of architects and designers. And these homes are fully customizable and come in 3 finish levels: standard, modern, or farmhouse. Add a bonus loft space, built-in storage, washer-dryer units, or even a fireplace. The Via Park Model RV is engineered to ANSI 119.5 standards and built with truly innovative techniques for increased stability, quality, and comfort. If lack of financing has kept you out of a tiny home in the past, Atomic Homes has you covered with conventional financing options available. Visit atomictinyhomes.com/THLP to customize your design today. Again, that's atomictinyhomes.com/THLP. Thank you so much to Atomic Homes for sponsoring our show. That website, again, is atomictinyhomes.com/THLP. All right, I am here with Nicole Sallak Anderson. Nicole is a computer science graduate from Purdue University and former CTO for a small Silicon Valley startup turned novelist, speaker, and blogger. Her essays range from AI and Zen to tiny house living to direct democracy to the loneliness of modern parenting, featured as a top 20 story on Medium. She's the author of The Song of the King's Heart trilogy, which is a series about the last native pharaoh of ancient Egypt and his quest to take back his ancestral kingdom from the Ptolemaic Empire, as well as the contemporary romance, I hope I pronounced that right, It Takes Two, a love story with a tango twist. Her memoir, Wildfire, Losing Everything, Gaining the World, is a collection of essays following the first year after she lost her home, pets, and all of her belongings to a California wildfire, which will be released in 2023. Nicole Sallak Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm beyond the purview of this tiny house podcast. I feel like there are so many different things that I want to talk to you about, but I guess take us back. And I know you've done some writing about this on your Substack, but you lost everything in a wildfire, and do we mean like everything?
Yeah. So I was blessed to move to California, to this plot of land. I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is just right above the town of Santa Cruz, right by the Pacific, and about an hour and a half south of San Francisco. And we moved here in 2007, and in 2020 we lost everything to the wildfires that occurred across the state. There was a lightning storm that basically we lost a lot. But yes, our house, 2 houses, a cat, 2 goats, and every single thing we owned, other than what we packed the night we evacuated.
Wow. I'm so sorry. That's really awful.
It was quite shocking, yes. It still is, but that's been part of the journey.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people who kind of intentionally decide to downsize and live in a tiny house really struggle with the process of getting rid of things so that they can move into a tiny house. But I'm imagining that you actually needed to acquire things and move into a tiny house.
Well, what's kind of interesting is that was so when I became tiny curious, as I put it, and
Mhm.
began following like various people on Instagram, like yourself, and
Mhm.
that was always the thing that came up. What do you do with your stuff? What do you do with your stuff? And since we had no stuff, and combined with which is sort of and I go over this a lot in the memoir, it was combined with one, just the absolute expense of rebuilding in California. We just weren't insured
Yeah.
to meet all of the requirements and codes. We had no idea with our insurance what to insure for. Combined with sort of a need to, if you want to live in a wildfire zone, why would you have a house you couldn't move off of it?
Right.
So we went
Right.
for it, but not having the stuff made it so much easier and also strange because stuff comes to you. I didn't expect this. When you lose
Yeah.
everything, it comes to you. And suddenly I'm like, no, 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 I'm moving into a 325 square foot home. Please don't offer me that. Please don't, such generosity from
Right.
people,
Right.
and so just really holding that line of I don't want to be overflowing when I had this opportunity to not be overflowing.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, our culture in particular seems to prioritize giving things and consuming. So it's
Mhm.
only natural that when somebody wants to do something nice and try to help you out, they try to give you a thing.
I do. It makes them feel better.
Right.
And I don't blame them, but
Right.
I kept saying I actually got Marie Kondo's books for the first time to say no to stuff. To so I still needed to manage it, even though
Hmm.
I had it
Hmm.
much easier than anyone else who's downsizing.
Yeah. So what was the process like and the time frame like from, after the wildfire and you kind of return to your land and find everything gone to actually, you know, having a tiny house built or
Mhm.
delivered to your land?
Yeah. Well, it happened in August of 2020, but we weren't even allowed to return to the land
Hmm.
until September when the fires were finally contained. And it was safe.
Okay.
And I'm, but at first, I so desperately just wanted to replace what was lost. We went straight away
Mm,
with hiring an architect and, getting everybody onto the land that needed to be here to build a house.
okay.
And then in February of 2021, we got our first builder's contract, like estimate. And that was
Okay.
when we realized that if we wanted to replace what we lost, we were going to need a lot of money. And
Right. Right.
and I've on the side been already following the tiny house movement. So I began asking those questions of people. And because I had already brought the septic guys out, brought the well
Yep.
people out, applied for my temp power permit, it was sort of like, oh, I just have to plug it in. So the process was, do we want a builder? Do we want to build it ourselves? In the end, permitting will be easier with a builder. So we found a builder.
Hmm.
And the house arrived in October of 2021. So a little over a year later, it sewed up and we plugged it in. And we then loved it so much, we decided we needed two more. And the reason for that is because we have two adult sons that come and go,
Hmm.
and we have elders who come to visit. And that's one of the downsides of a tiny home living is space. So we put in two more, one for each young man,
Hmm.
and they when the boys aren't here, I'm in the one that's the office. This is my
Uh-huh.
eldest son's, and but when he's not here, it's my office. And then the other one we call the lounge. It's my younger
Uh-huh.
son's, and it's where my husband watches TV when I want to sleep.
Awesome.
And it's actually been perfect. Yeah, it's
Nice.
been
And
perfect. And then they can take these should they want to in the future
uh-huh.
because it is a national movement
Yeah.
and it is portable. So
So, yeah, they don't always tell you that about insurance that they don't cover the cost of building something new. They cover the cost, the value of what was there, even if it didn't,
what you lost.
doesn't meet current codes.
Right.
To build the same thing might cost a lot more, or you wouldn't even be allowed to build the same thing because of the change in codes.
Yeah, that's what happened to us with the foundation. And that really changed the pricing. And, you do get something called code upgrades that you can buy in your insurance policy.
Yeah.
However, it's a percentage of the value of the house. And in California, that doesn't cover, it's not even close.
Okay. Yeah, that must have been its own shock and disappointment, just realizing, because we all like buy homeowners insurance and we kind of just assume like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. Like if anything bad happens, like I have insurance.
Right. Yeah, no, it felt like losing the house again, or at least a dream again, because we really did just want to return, and
yeah.
we were like, oh, now we might not be able to. We might have to leave our entire state because it's not like it's just Santa Cruz, it's the state.
Yeah.
And this allowed us to stay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the idea of multiple tiny houses. And I actually interviewed a couple that it hasn't gone out on the show yet, but by the time people are listening to this episode, it'll be episode 258 with Elisa and Rick. And they are a married couple that have kind of a his and hers tiny house. They have two tiny houses. They each have their own space, but they're parked right next to each other, obviously. And
yeah.
So I love this kind of family model that you're using with these tiny houses. And I'm curious, is each tiny house like a full, complete, like kitchen, bathroom, everything? Yeah. Or did you kind of say, okay, my office tiny house just needs to be like a bedroom / office room?
Yeah, no, they all have bathrooms because the builder we went with, every model has a bathroom in it. It's not like he doesn't build them that way. But the two others have a very small, like they have a sink and a tiny hot plate, like an induction stovetop, but no oven, and and it's pretty simple, and a little tiny fridge. Whereas the main house where my husband and I live, that has the full-on kitchen.
Got it.
Yeah.
What's the size of the main tiny house and of the two accessory tiny houses?
Yeah, the main tiny house is 325 square feet. The littler ones are 250.
Okay.
And they're shorter, but one of them is very tall and open. This one is smaller. But I liked it because it had the bed on the main floor for our elders when they come to visit. Climbing up the ladder is very difficult for them.
Yep.
Whereas the other one has the lofted bed, so the whole space you think it's so much bigger than it is. And I really like that aspect of it, but you have to go up a ladder to get to the bed, and that's fine for a 21-year-old man, but it's not great for 70-year-old grandma and grandpa.
Right. Certainly not.
Yeah, so we balanced it that way too, because I really love the lofted bedroom thing.
And so were all three houses built by the same builder? And are they kind of like, do they match, or are they all very different?
Yes, we used Escape Homes out of Wisconsin, and one of the reasons I picked them was because they are built. They have beautiful design. The cabinetry, the interiors, and the designs are really great. So we got an Escape Traveler XLS for the main house, the big house, as we call it, the big tiny. And then we got a little boho that matches it externally. But my younger son wanted to he chose the one, which is a very different looking design by them.
Yep.
But he just wanted to, change it up. And I actually like the way it complements the whole little village.
Yeah, so you've created your own little tiny house village right on your land.
Exactly. And so far, we've been able to permit one of them. The county is being hesitant about the other two. We think there's a path for the state. The state itself is moving towards wanting more tiny homes, more ADUs, more, so I think it's just going to be a matter of time. And since the boys don't live here full time, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But we are working towards that. But the state is more like, oh, you can have a tiny house or maybe two, at the moment. And
Yeah.
that doesn't, this works. And this is a family solution. So I think they'll figure that out with time. And we're just working with them constantly and offering up a space for them to, see how this is a viable solution for the housing crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you say the three tiny homes compared in cost to like rebuilding what you had?
Well, so, and this is what's interesting because I belong to a couple of Facebook groups, and it really matters what state you live in, that
Of
answer to
course.
that question for sure.
Yeah.
But for us, I even looked into putting in a foundation tiny home. There is a point where it doesn't really save you any money to go too small when
Yeah.
in California when building. But I looked into a foundation's 2 bedroom, 800, no, yeah, 800 square foot, 1,000 square foot home. And it was going to cost
Uh-huh.
$800,000 by the time everything was said and done. And while
Wow.
this is not 800 square feet
Right.
total there, what we calculated it up to be, it's close, well, it's close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually it is. This was about $230,000 for putting, ordering them. We did upgrade a lot in the big tiny, not in the two little
Yep.
ones. And then, of course, we just had to repair a well and a septic.
Hmm.
If you were to install that, and this is one of the things the tiny home movement here in Santa Cruz County has come up against, if you were to install those new, your septic and your well, you were looking at another $200,000.
Yeah.
Now, you were going to have to do that for a foundationed home anyway, but it really runs counter to the idea of affordable housing. And you can get these composting toilet, you know,
Yeah.
situations, and they're not allowing that right now. You have to put in a septic. And a new septic here is about
Mm.
100,000. But the house itself was just going to be 800,000 for a 2 bedroom, 850 square foot home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
That's
with like lower end appliances and flooring, um, and all of the requirements that California required.
yeah. So difficult to want to pull the trigger on that when you can, you know, do tiny homes and probably get much nicer finishes inside and also kind of
Oh,
scale
absolutely.
up for your needs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's like, your life changes. Sometimes you
Yeah.
need another unit because you've got your parents there too, right? Like
Yeah.
housing affects everyone, and sometimes you have a young adult child or, you have a friend in need, or sometimes you don't need any of that. It's just you.
Yeah. So in terms of the actual land and the site prep for these three tiny homes, like what did you have to do to kind of create the infrastructure for them?
Well, because we were a fire rebuild, like I said, we already had a septic and well on hand. The tanks had been
Hmm.
burnt, and obviously, not all of the underground plumbing had to be redone and trenched.
Yep.
And that was an interesting kind of so after a fire, it's kind of twofold. One, the trades, there aren't a lot of them anymore. So if you have infrastructure costs or things that need to be done on the land, it's really hard to get someone to come out to work. And then when 900 homes were lost,
Yeah.
those who are around are like, you got to beg. So I found a plumber and an electrician, but neither of them had a trencher or the time, like that they didn't have a staff large enough to trench. So my husband bought the
Okay.
trencher and trenched all the plumbing, all the electrical
Yep.
lines down to the house. And then the electrician put in the little electrical box. So he just had an
Right.
outlet for a tiny home, which is so cool. And the plumber ran spigots to each
Yep.
location. And
Yep.
then we down to the septic. But it was interesting. So my husband and my son had to do that other work, and then they came and put in the electrical or the conduit or the plumbing.
Yeah.
And then the inspector looked at everything, and then we filled it in. So that's kind of how that went. And then electricity was just through. At the moment, we are not off grid. We are on a power pole with PG&E, and that was just an
Mhm.
order ticket, and they did all of that.
Nice.
But we had to have the electrician bring everything off the panel box.
Right. Yeah. If you've already got the power out to your land,
Yeah.
it's usually a lot cheaper to just use it rather
Yes.
than go with the solar panels.
Right, because they were required by state law to put in power to our land because power had already been here. So they put up all
Mm,
the infrastructure to do it. Yeah, if you didn't have that, that would be a lot more cost
right.
to it. Yeah,
Very expensive to bring power up to a property.
very.
So
So we got that.
I hate to ask you, but I'm curious, like, do you have kind of an evacuation plan should you need to boogie
To move them.
and try to bring these homes with you?
We've gone back and forth on that. So it's an interesting thing.
Uh-huh.
I would hate for them to burn because it's a gross mess. Like plain and simple, when you see the toxic mess left behind when the American home burns, it would be great to get
Mm,
them off the land. However, no, we do not have the ability to take all three of them off the land. We have made it so that all around each one, it's patio, not wood. Like we
yep.
followed all the fire codes, and
Yep.
they are insured as vehicles 100% plus all of our belongings. So, like on the flip side, when you've lost everything,
Hmm.
it's not hard to lose it again. So we
Fair.
we we are fine with it burning. We are trying
Hmm.
everything we can. They've got metal roofs, metal underbelly. They're in a
Hmm.
much better situation than our home ever was.
Yeah.
So the likelihood is slim, but no, we don't have at the moment. We can get one off. We have a truck and we can drive one off, and the other two would have to be left behind, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, it's not easy to move multiple tiny homes, let alone one of them.
No, no. And once you get them in, they're kind of in. But what is neat is we have the one kind of at the end on the driveway, and we can pull
Hmm.
it out. The others, that's not going to be the
Right.
case. They're in. We've moved the land. We've had them. I don't even know how they parked them. Those men are and women are amazing that drive trucks that deliver the tiny
Oh my
homes.
gosh. Yeah.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. My tiny house in its current location, the trailer hitch is literally like 3 feet from the corner of the lot, and the guy who towed it actually used a winch around a tree in the woods to drag the tiny house back into the corner.
It was crazy watching these
Yeah.
people deliver these
Yeah.
things. I was just
Yeah.
like,
No. No, it is incredible.
yeah,
It's definitely incredible.
yeah.
So you have collected your essays into a memoir called Wildfire, Losing Everything, Gaining the World. Um,
Mhm.
tell us about the book project.
Yeah, so I've been a writer, a novelist, and blogger.
Mhm.
I've had a blog since 2013, and it was mostly focused on technology and
Mhm.
consciousness and and living. I would say sustainable living. Those kind of go together,
Mhm.
but not tiny house focused or anything like that for all those years. But then when I lost my house, what I discovered was writing and blogging about it really helped me heal and process it.
Mhm.
And I didn't publish
Mhm.
every essay that I wrote, but I had followers that wanted to know how I was. So the first essay is this is what happened. And then here we are. And then it just kept going.
Yep.
And I decided I would write at least every
Yeah.
week. Sometimes it was every day for the first year. And
Yeah.
when I was done, I was like, I realized I had sort of a story
Yeah.
about a girl and her land, and I wanted to share it with everyone. And so then I kind of curated the essays that told that story,
Yeah.
but they were written as it happened. So it's a in the moment thing, and it culminates with my first night in the first tiny when it was delivered. So about
Mm.
a year and a couple months after the fire. Yeah.
Nice. And is that book out now, or is it something that's coming? soon?
It's available for pre-order and it comes out on May 1st. So I don't know
Nice.
if you're going to share my website on
For sure.
anything or yeah, that go to my website and there's a link for the pre-order for the Kindle and paperback. Yeah, you'll put it in the show notes. And that's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, Beltane. I thought that it would be nice to release it on a celebration of the earth and all of its renewal.
Hmm. Very nice. Have you found that living tiny has given you a better appreciation for your land and just the outdoors in general?
Yes, although I'm going to admit, and this is one of the things we talk about, maybe you've talked about this with some of your other guests too, about the
Uh-huh.
challenges of tiny living,
Yeah.
because you are so much closer to nature. The extremes can be difficult, extreme heat. And in the case of California, we just had extreme storms, weather
Yeah.
that has not been seen here in a long time, needed the rain. But
Hmm.
managing, unfortunately, yes, we were closer to nature, and
Hmm.
it's a bit wild to have those 70-mile-an-hour winds. The houses withstood that. They moved with it, right? And that's
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. We unfortunately did have some leaking in one of the bigger tiny homes, and so
Okay.
understanding how to manage condensation and moisture
Mm.
is a big one. Escape is sending a carpenter out to work on the windows. There may have been an issue there.
Okay.
Well, and just in that bigger tiny, not in the one I'm in at the moment. It's completely dry, but it was challenging. Like, oh my goodness, the window is leaking. And then what do you do once it gets wet? And how do you manage the condensation in a small place? So I highly recommend dehumidifiers for anyone
Yep.
who lives in a small space. And and then the extreme heat can sometimes be interesting, but in that case, we have a mini split with an AC, so it helps. But building shade structures around your house to accommodate that is part of the fun, but definitely important in small house living. Um, your outdoor living room can double as your sunscreen, to help manage that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I second the recommendation for dehumidifiers for sure. They can help.
We had no idea. And we did let it get too moist. I even had mold on my shoes in my closet
Oh
because I wasn't
no.
paying attention. Yeah. But we figured it out, and hopefully Escape will do the right thing when they come here too, because there was a leak
Yeah.
in a window. But definitely the dehumidifier was huge, and managing your heat. Don't let it get below like 60 in there, which is tricky when the power goes out.
Yeah.
Even if you have a propane heater, you
Hmm.
need a generator,
Yep. Yep.
and it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. The house is very small, so it is more susceptible to like a deep freeze or very hot temperatures. It will heat up or cool down a lot quicker than a bigger house.
It really, yeah. And you just live and learn, but definitely, you know, be prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any plans to add additional tiny homes to the village?
No, we probably, like I said, we're going to have a hard enough time getting both of my son's units official.
Permitted. Yeah.
But, so I don't see adding more to them, but I do actually see adding more to some land that I have up in the Upper Peninsula. Talk about
Okay.
Michigan, talk about a cold place, but my parents bought
Yeah.
land up there. And it was interesting right after the fire. They bought it long ago and never developed it. And after the fires, my dad, he's getting old, and he's like, gee, are you interested in this land? I'm like, I can't think about that, Dad. But in the middle of the night, I woke up and I was like, I just had this feeling like we need it. We need that land. The UP has lots of water.
Yeah.
And it's above the 42nd parallel. And so I'm actually looking into working with that county, which is a lot easier to work with than California.
Mm.
Put in some housing there for that I could rent out as for skiers. There's a lot of skiing in the Upper Peninsula, and it's very close to that.
Uh-huh.
Nordic skiing, there are trails that actually border the property. So sort of opening up the property and connecting with them and
Okay.
putting Nordic skiing and tiny homes on wheels in there. And they seem pretty open to that. So that's a project that I hope to work on maybe in the next 5 years
Yeah.
to do it there because I love it. I love it a lot.
So do you think you'll do another tiny home on a trailer for that build?
I don't know because of the temperatures there and how cold it gets, and they can get like 20, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet of snow. That
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I would foundation tiny homes there, or combine it because something I've noticed. I was an Airbnb hostess for a while and traveled a lot
Huh.
on Airbnb. People love to stay in tiny homes, so there
Yes, they
is sort
do.
of I think might combine it with one home that is foundationed and then throw on like a little corral. Even some of the
Okay.
ski resorts in the area have done that, where they've got the corral of tiny homes on wheels around a fireplace, fire pit or a communal
Yeah.
area. And I think that
Nice.
would be a really neat way to do it and have some flexibility.
Nice.
Or put them closer to the trails and then just have the one main house. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I think I'll start with the homes on wheels because they're more flexible.
Right. Very flexible. Also very, potentially different build needs for that cold climate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And to get to learn the land too. It's not as much of like we've even said that here, it's not as much of a commitment if the wildfire season continues so horribly or the drought continues so horribly. We can
Mhm.
take these homes to a new place and you can learn about the land before making the commitment of putting in a foundationed home.
Yeah. Yeah. How have your kids enjoyed living tiny when they're there?
When they've been here, I think they treat it like a campground. I mean, to be fair, they were in college when the house burnt.
Okay.
They had just left for college,
Okay.
and so they come and visit. This is not home yet to them. It's so different.
Right.
But I think they've both said they appreciate knowing that they have a home solution that's not tied to staying with mom and dad.
Nice. Yeah, they have their own space when they come to visit.
Mhm. Yes, and they both like that.
Nice. Nice. And they have their own space away from each other when they come and visit. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they definitely enjoy that part. And like I said, the one calls this glamping.
Hmm.
He was just here for his spring break, but he enjoyed it. So
Nice.
yeah.
Any kind of unexpected, you kind of mentioned some of the challenges of living
Mhm.
tiny. Any kind of unexpected benefits or things that you weren't expecting?
Part of it is because we don't have a lot of stuff now, so I don't think this is going to apply to everyone. But if you
Uh-huh.
have, I have found I have found it so clean and easy to
Mm.
keep clean, of course, because it's
Yeah.
small. But if you have a lot of clutter, that could get difficult. But I love the way I almost feel less chaos in my life because
Mm.
it's so clean and simple. And then, of course, I can clean everything in less than an hour, which is really great. I was expecting that, and it is everything I expected. But the biggest one is just sitting in this space and feeling held in a way that my big house never made me feel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
And there's just less clutter in my head as a result, too.
yeah, it's amazing how one kind of can reflect the other, the clutter in your space and the clutter in your mind.
Yeah. And I'm sure there is a danger that this could become cluttered.
Yes.
I mean, you can see behind me, I don't have much stuff. That's because this is my son's unit. I don't want to fill it with me.
Right.
But at the same time, I could see how that shelf up there could be completely full.
Right.
But at the
Right.
moment, it's not. And I really appreciate it.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Nicole Sallak Anderson, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. It was really wonderful to meet you.
Well, thank you so much, Ethan. And thank you for your work and what you do on Instagram and sharing with everybody because it's a beautiful way to live. It really is.
Thank you so much to Nicole Sallak Anderson for being a guest on the show today. You can find the show notes, including photos of Nicole's tiny houses, links to her books, and a complete transcript over at thetinyhouse.net/264. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/264. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.